And I will go ahead and welcome you to this AutoCAD class on working with attributes. So I'm going to kind of assume you haven't worked with attributes in blocks too much. Otherwise, this might be the wrong class for you. If that is the case, you know, I don't want to see you leave, but I would encourage you to find the appropriate class that might suit your skill level a little bit more better, okay? Let's see. Huh, there's my PowerPoint. Okay, let's see if this works. So my name's Volker Coco. I'm with Autodesk Product Support, and I've worked with Autodesk for about 3 years. Worked with AutoCAD since release 10, and so 1991, I think it was. And there may be some people here who have worked with it longer than I have. Wouldn't surprise me one bit. And this class, of course, is working with attributes. So I'll speed things up here a little bit. But please remember to silence your cell phones. As I mentioned before, if the class isn't right for you, I won't feel bad. I won't sleep tonight, but I won't feel bad if you leave. This class will be recorded, and of course you have the handouts. Because everything moves so fast, the technical verbiage, okay, that I'll be presenting in the AutoCAD portion, all those exercises I've put into the handout. So you can actually work through this when you get to your computer. As well as, you know, all the files are there that I'll be using in this presentation. If there is a problem with those files or the handout, feel free to shoot me an email, and I'll get you straightened out. Also, as part of the AutoCAD product support team, we are doing webinars, which are available every week. We do a new webinar. From basics to more intermediate, and I encourage you to check those out. Those are on Thursdays. If you haven't already, there's a couple of business cards up front that have all the links to those webinars, and we get some good interaction with end users, and those sessions are also recorded. They are free. You can find more information in booth 147 in Exhibit Hall, and like I said, held weekly. So again, I'm kind of speeding through this to get us caught up. All right, so in this class, I hope to show you a nice overview of how to define block attributes, explain what they are, how to redefine or update those, edit them, modify them, and then how to extract that information to a table in AutoCAD, as well as an external file such as an Excel spreadsheet or Microsoft database, text file if you want. And then finally, throughout the presentation, I'll throw in a few tidbits of knowledge that you should be aware of when working with attributes. So what is an attribute? All it is, it's another way of adding information to your drawing. Typically, we have graphical information in our drawing. This could be line work, hatches, text, stuff we see. And then we have non-graphical information that we can attach, which are attributes. They are a way to store information in the drawing about an object, a part perhaps. And this could be a catalog number, the cost associated with that part, who the manufacturer is, and the end user, when working with a block that has attributed data attached to it, can change the value of that or input a new value, or the values can be predefined as a constant value, and that information will be ready to view in the drawing. You can also set everything to be invisible so that people don't see that information, and again, it can be extracted as a schedule, a bill of materials, you know, some kind of document for the type of information you have in your drawing. So when you are working with attributes. Now everything, okay. When you're working with attributes, there are several ways to get to defining an attribute. And this is through a command called @def. By default, it's an alias in AutoCAD, AT, or you can, of course, get it from the Insert tab of the ribbon. And that would be Create Attribute. We also have Edit Attribute. It's actually Define Attributes up there. Sorry about that. And we can also modify those attributes from that panel. All right, so on this slide here, I say there are 3 primary components to an attribute. There's actually more, but the main thing you need when defining an attribute is that you need a unique tag. If you're familiar with databases, and that includes Excel, you know, you're going to have a tag which is basically your field. And that tag is placed up here under the attribute creation portion. You also will have a prompt. This is what you're asking from the end user. So what room is this attribute identifying? That would be the prompt that the user would get, and then the user would type in the value which would be displayed within the drawing. So those are the 3 things that make up the attribute. The thing about a tag is it can be up to, I think it's 255 characters nowadays. Really wouldn't do that. Treat it again like you would any database. Okay, you also can't have spaces. I wouldn't go over 32 characters in creating any one of these tags or values. And I'll explain why with the value when we see some of the dialogues. So I wouldn't go above 32 characters, maybe even a little shorter. And you would want to play with that. And a lot of that is due to some of the older dialogues in AutoCAD. But tags, again, are database components. And we treat it like any database. We have on the left-hand side of the dialog the mode. These are just options, how we want to be prompted or how we want that attribute to be displayed when we insert an attributed block. Okay, so the first mode, invisible, pretty self-explanatory. We insert a block, we input a value, and that value remains invisible. So this is great for something like a cost, okay? Or maybe it's just information you really don't need to see. So I'm going to be using a desk telephone in my example today. All I really need to see is the extension number. So all the other attributes I create for it are going to be invisible, but the extension will remain visible. And you'll see how that works when I do the demo on that. Constant, that means that whatever value I put in here as a default when I create the attribute stays that way. Until the only way I can change that is if I modify the block itself that has the attribute attached to it. Hope that makes sense. If not, it will as we move along. Verify, I never use this option. It's very redundant. When I insert a block that has an attribute, I get prompted for the value. I input the value. As soon as I'm done with the insertion portion, it again prompts up, hey, are you sure this is the value you want? To me, that's redundant, but there's a purpose for it. I haven't figured it out, okay? Preset means it's similar to constant. I put in a default value, and when I insert the block, it doesn't prompt me for that value. But if I, as an end user, want to change it using one of the modify tools for values, I can easily do that. It just means I have a set value. The parts cost $49.95. All right, well, this phone here is representing a different phone. It's $69.95. You know, all my other phones are $49.95. I just change it to $69.95. Lock position, that is to keep the attribute to be from accidentally being moved when you move a block using grips. Okay, so you may grab the grip of an attribute and move it outside of the block by accident. And, it's your choice how you work with your blocks, if you want to use that or not. With a few releases back, they added multi-lines to our attribute values. And basically, it's going to pull up a little bit of an mText editor and allow you to add more than one line of text. I prefer to work with single-line attribute values, but there's been a need for it, and the option is there. You just need to define it with the attribute itself. You'll see under text settings, I'm very anal about how I place text in a drawing. If I have a circular object of some type, I want that text middle center. Okay? If I have text to the left of something, I want to justify it so regardless of how I scale it or how I move things around, it's always going to remain to the left of that object. So you have, just like anything else, you have the options to choose a justification. Just like anything else, you should have a unique style for your attributes for a text style. Okay, using standard, if I insert this, my block, into another drawing and had standard assigned as a style, and somebody in their drawing had defined standard as, say, oh, I don't know, a real elaborate font, you know, Gothic or something like that, all of a sudden my block is going to show all the information as a Gothic font. So I create a unique style, which when I insert that block in another drawing, that unique style, chances are nobody's going to have a style called VCAD, all right? So it's always going to remain, keep that same look and feel that I assigned to it when I created it. So again, that's up to you, but I would recommend creating some kind of a style, just like you would for dimensions or anything else. Text type, whatever your standards are, rotation, that's all fairly explanatory. You probably worked with that. I do have one item crossed out there. It's highlighted. It's there for you to use, and that is annotative. When you create blocks, you're all probably familiar or may have seen annotative blocks that can be scaled automatically in viewports. Do not use annotative in an attribute if you're going to have an attribute within the block. Assign the annotation scale, or the fact that it's annotative, to the block itself. It's going to, the attribute text is going to do whatever that block tells it to do, all right? There are times, and I've done this often, where I create an attribute as a standalone block. Say a label I just want to plop into my drawing. Another piece of technical verbiage, all right? And in that case, then maybe I do want it annotative, okay? Because it is its own block. It's, again, I typically stay away from this in attributes. I would play with it and encourage you to play with it and see how it affects your drawing. I think insertion point is pretty self-explanatory as well. X, Y, Z coordinates, how you want to place it in the drawing. Okay, another thing that was added in AutoCAD 2005 is an object called a field. This class isn't really about fields, so I encourage you to explore that a little bit more, but basically attribute text, even though it's kind of dynamic because it allows you to change it on the fly, it's not. It's static. But what you can do is insert a field. So an example would be I did a lot of GIS work, and at one point I had to do it in just an AutoCAD drawing. And I would assign a field that showed the X and Y coordinates for power poles. And when I inserted the block, the field would pick up those coordinates where I inserted it. And so there are a lot of things to do. One of the things I'll be showing in this class is how we can add document properties to our attribute. So in the title block, maybe I wanted to automatically show the save date, who the drafter was for that revision. Okay. I could even show a plot date. There's all kinds of different properties in the field categories. By default, it's going to show you all of them. So you would want to kind of filter out the category you want to work with, in this case, document, and it allows you to specify the properties, field properties that are available for document. There's a whole bunch of fields. we'll just do a little bit to give you an idea of how it works. All right, so the bottom line is you first define an attribute. And this is what it would look like before you create a block out of it. Okay, so these here are all the tags that I define my attributes with. Once I define it as a block, it's going to show the values that I may or may not have assigned to the block. If you need to, after you've used the attribute definition dialog, if you need to modify any of these attribute values or tags or even prompts, the property palette allows you to do that quickly. Just select your attribute, make the changes in the property palette. All right, some commands we should be aware of. The first one, of course, is insert block, because an attribute is part of a block, so you're going to have to insert it to make it work. The next one is at display. This controls visibility. So let's say I have some information in the drawing. I know I'm never going to send the drawing to anybody, but I may send a hard copy of that drawing. But I don't want them to see the values of the attributes. I can easily turn off the display of the attributes using that command. And the same goes with maybe I want to do a quick check plot, or maybe most of my attributes are invisible, so I need to see them all quickly to make sure the information has been filled in. So I may need to turn them on. Just be sure that if you use the on or off option, that once you go to creating new attributed blocks, that you turn it back to normal. Otherwise, you may have problems. The next tier are system variables. When you insert a block, you are by default prompted in a dialog box for the values. So if you have 20 different attributes on that block, like a title block, it's probably a lot easier to maneuver through the dialog box than to maybe do it from a command line, which is the 0 setting for this system variable. System variables are just toggles for how a command works. Okay, if you haven't worked with those too much. The default's 1. You probably don't have to change this unless you like working from the command line. At request is really cool. I like showing this one because if I have multiple blocks that I need to insert, I'm not ready to fill in the attribute information, then I'll turn at request, ATTREQ, off, which is 0. And that way I can insert the blocks, and then later on I can go back and add the values when that information has been given to me or when I'm ready. Because if I have 30 power poles or 40 doors or something like that to insert, maybe I don't want to take the time right then and there to fill in those values. So I would turn that to 0, and I could just insert those and get back to moving along until the information is given to me or when I'm ready to add it. Of course, anything we do in AutoCAD, anything we create, at one time or another, we need to modify. And for the most part, we can use things like the property palette to quickly modify the value of my block attribute. We also have a tool called @edit or edit attributes. It's going to look, when you see it in a moment, it's going to look exactly like the insert attribute dialog box when I first insert a attribute. And then we have the enhanced attribute editor. This not only allows me to modify the value of an attribute, but also properties such as text and the style of text, as well as layer, the color, whether it's by layer or it has a unique color, all those type of drawing properties, object properties that we can modify. Those 3 commands will only modify a single attribute. Okay, they're not going to do a global update. For global and single, you can use a tool called Batman, Block Attribute Manager. You could also think of it as a batch attribute manager. This allows you to make changes to one block attribute and then update all the other attributes in your drawing. The thing about attributes is that, unlike a block, which we can redefine and it updates all the other blocks, you can update your block, but that attribute will not update until you use tools such as the attribute synchronization or synchronized attributes tool down there. And there's some other tools that are old school. Bedit works as well for modifying all the attributes in a drawing. Your block editor, if you've worked with that. Again, just like Batman, you need to use that synchronize attributes command to update the attribute values, tags, whatever, for that block in your drawing. I know this is all going very fast, what I'm going over. There are detailed explanations of this in the handout. And again, I'll be showing you most of these tools in the AutoCAD demo. Last of all here, we have ways to extract this data to an external file, as I mentioned before, or a table in AutoCAD. And again, this class isn't about tables, so you're going to get the glossy overview on that, but I'll go through the data extraction portion. The formats available are spreadsheets, a comma-delimited file format, Microsoft Access Database format, and then a space-formatted, space-delimited text file. You can also, as you're creating the data extraction, create a template so that later on you make modifications to the project. You want to run that extraction routine again, you can easily reuse a template. Unfortunately, this tool is not available in AutoCAD LT. There's an old school method. It's quite a bit more tedious. It works just as well, but it's more tedious. So I thought I'd throw that in there in case any of you are using LT and expect to be able to do that. It's not my fault. Okay. Okay, so I believe that is, yeah, we'll talk about the rest of this stuff here at the end of the class. I am now going to have to turn around and have my back to you. So I do apologize about that, but I'm as annoyed about that as you are. Trust me, if not more so. I mean, there's got to be a better way, right? Okay, so we'll plop that up there on the screen. See if we can just rip out all these cords, right? Okay. Alrighty. So we'll fake this as best as we can. I believe this drawing here. All right, so what I have here, God, it's difficult to see. What I have here is very difficult to see. Is my block that I'm going to be creating out of just regular AutoCAD line work. And what I've done here is just as a cheat sheet. And again, this is pretty much the same drawing file I've put up on the web, on the data set. I'm going to add an extension attribute, which will be visible on the phone when I insert it as a block. Then the employee name, employee title, department, and cost are all going to be invisible. And we'll go ahead and set the cost as a preset, just kind of give you an idea of how that works. And hopefully I can fake this well enough from this angle. All right, so the first thing I'd want to do, and I can't see that up there. It should be on the Insert tab, I believe. Yeah, did I leave it there? Okay. So I'm going to, since I showed you that in the PowerPoint, I'm just going to type in the command @def. I apologize, all right? And that brings up the attribute definition dialog. And I'm going to go ahead and set this here to extension. And what's going to happen too is after you add a tag, is you can type it in any way you want, but it's always going to uppercase it for you once that attribute has been defined. And I believe I'm in the next field. So here I'm going to go ahead and type in enter extension. This can be my prompt. And again, this is what the user sees. I can have spaces just like any other sentence. I tend to keep them short because of the next dialogue you'll be seeing after we're done with this portion. And then for a value, you don't necessarily have to put in a value. But I like to put something showing, hey, I expect a number here, okay, or I expect a character of some kind. So maybe for this here, I would type in something like, oops, I'm still on the other one, tab, you know, like a pound sign or something to indicate numbers. I usually use a hyphen for alpha characters, and then for numeric characters, I use a pound sign. All right, so this is the part that's going to be hard to do from this angle. I'm going to go ahead and let's see, all my modes are should all be the same here. And I'm going to go ahead and change the style now to one that I have in the drawing. Okay, it's already on that. You'll notice I have that style in there. I'm going to set that to maybe a middle left. And I'll change the text type to 0.5. So, let's see, ML, is that? Okay. All right, thank you. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and select that. And then I've got the style set. And here, the value 0.5. And that should be all I need there. I've got my insertion point. I'll click OK. All right, now I'm just going to go ahead and plop this, reference that. It's so hard to see from this angle. So it's not going to be as nice as I want it to be, but I've just plopped it in there. And the next one is employee, I believe. So I'm just going to repeat the command. And here I'll go emp name, and then maybe F. Oops. And for value, again, I'm just going to put something like that. And it actually gets easier after this. Is this, that's middle left still? Okay, just left. For right now, I'll just leave it on left. I think that way I don't have to try and muddle through this. But my style should still be VCAD, and it should still be the same text type. I'll leave all that the same. And for mode, invisible, gone ahead and grabbed that. And then I'll go ahead and click OK here. And we'll plop that. Now, this actually gets a little easier. It's not quite as tedious once I repeat this command. So the next one is department. Pardon me? Title. All right, thank you. And we'll go ahead and enter title. And for value, again, I'll just put something here. But now instead of having to change all this, there's actually an option here to insert below my last created attribute. And so it just, once I click OK here, it just inserts it at that location. Okay, so again, because this is taking a little longer with me straining, I think you kind of get the idea of how to add this here. All right? So what I'm going to do is switch to another drawing where I've already created the entire block. All right? Always got to have some kind of a fail-safe. All right, so let's go. And, oops. There it was. All right. So we'll go ahead and switch to this drawing here. And there we go. And I'm going to go ahead and switch over to model. And so here as you can see, I've already defined these phones here. I'll go ahead and use the insert command just to show you how this works. And there's our block insert command. And there will be a phone-gen. Oh, okay, second from the bottom. And we'll go ahead and obviously this is the insert dialog here. I'm hoping you're all familiar with it. I'm going to go ahead and plop this into the drawing. This is the attribute dialog box that I was talking about, where you are prompted for information. So here we can fill in that extension number. Now, I was talking about how many characters you should probably limit your values to at least, or even the prompts. This thing doesn't resize. So the space from here to there, if you make that prompt too long, it's going to get cut off. All right, so be aware of that. And I'm just going to go ahead and insert this. I've already got information in the drawing that I need on the desks. All right, so I'll just plop it here off to the side. I go through all the rest of the AutoCAD prompts. And I may have canceled out on that. But what I'll do now, yeah, I did cancel. What I'll do now is I'm going to go ahead and insert these by turning off @request, just to show you what happens. Okay, so this is system variables need to be typed in from the command line. Okay, and there should be, didn't type it in right, TTREQ. Okay, and the value right now is 1, which it should be. I'll set that to 0. And then I'm going to go ahead and insert that block. So I turned that to 0. There we go. All right. And now let's go ahead and use the insert command. And that's still on phone gen. Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and insert that. And we'll pick a spot here. Oops. There we go. Yeah. Oh, it's 0, 0. Thank you. That's one thing you got to be careful of when you're not paying attention to the changes. This saves the same changes all the time. Specify on screen. Well, that's weird. Oh, okay, specify on screen. All right. Now I know AutoCAD by heart, but it's weird when you're trying to see something. There we go. Click OK. There we go. All right. So it's just prompting me for the AutoCAD insertion options as I insert the phone. And that's @request having turned off. Later on, I can go back and modify those attributes. I know this is difficult. I'm glad not too many of you are walking out yet. All right. So that was @request. I'm going to turn that back on so that I can use it later. I'm going to cancel out this. And we'll go ahead and set that to 1. Actually, since I used this drawing, I actually need to undo everything. Because I want to show you next fields. Still one more in there. Thank you. All right. Should be almost there. All right. There we go. Undo, undo, undo. What am I hitting? All right. Finally. There we go. Okay. So now let's take a look at this title block right here. Here I've got title, subject, and drafter. And I could have used a better example, like instead of subject, drawing name. Okay? Bad choice on mine when I was putting this together, but I already did the screenshots, and I said I'll leave it. All right. So what I'm going to do, there's a command called DWGPROPS. If you are not familiar with this, you can find it under Drawing Utilities, Drawing Properties, or you can type DWGPROPS at the command prompt. This brings up a dialog that you should be familiar with. If you've ever mouse clicked over a file in Windows Explorer to see properties, that's all this is. And you can, under the Custom tab, you can actually create your own fields that you'd like to use in there. Okay? All I've done here is I've populated the title with AU 2014. For subject, I said attribute extraction, and I put my name as an author in there. As far as fields go, I could have used login name, but author in this drawing will be drafter. Okay? And so what I'm going to do now is close this dialog. Just cancel out of that. And what I'll do is I'll go into the block editor. Let's do it this way. Select that. And go into the block editor. And that should have that title block selected. And in here, I'm going to go ahead and make some modifications by adding those attributes for that. So when I go into the attribute definition dialog, I'm going to go ahead and I'll put title up here. And the next one for the prompt, enter title. And then for the next one, instead of typing in anything right here, I can either click on this button for a field, or I can right mouse click over that and choose insert attribute. Am I over that? I better just click on the button. There we go. Since everything is kind of looking a little strange from this angle, that brings up the field dialog. Again, it shows all the categories. And I just want to use document, thank you, which filters all that out. And so as you can see here, we have author at the very top, title and subject at the very bottom. And depending on which field you use, you're going to have different options. If you have coordinates, or you'll have options for formatting the text for those coordinates. If you have a file name, you can add an extension, leave the extension off, show the full path. Well, you know, there's a lot of functionality with fields. Again, not a fields class. So I'm going to choose those three. Let's see what, yeah. I'm going to choose those three right here. We'll start off with title, obviously, since that's what I defined. Let me know if that's the wrong one. But I'm going to go ahead and keep it on the same case here and click OK. Yes? Oh, invisible should be off on that. Thank you. And that's just because I can't see the screen that well here. I'll turn that off. Unless you want it to be invisible. You know, I don't. I'm glad you pointed it out. And I'll change that over here. Come on, mouse. All right. And one of the things I'm going to do for you all, for bearing with me, is I'm going to throw together a nice video of this class that I'll send you a link for as well to go through this to give you a better demo. I'm really embarrassed about this. Like I said, everything worked fine this morning. So now I need to... I'm trying to, but the chords and everything won't let me. That would be so nice if something worked right. I'm just going to do one of these and go to my finished drawing to show you how it's done so we can get through the data extraction portion of it as well. All right? So just like any other attribute, I would want to choose a setting such as, am I on middle left? Okay. All right, thanks. We'll go ahead and change the size on this. Mind the size. Yeah, we want it at 0.1 in this particular case. 0.5 for the other ones, but we're in paper space. We're going to be using this for. I'm just going to leave all these. Oh, still, I thought I grabbed that. There we go. Got it? Yeah. Thank you. All right, we'll go ahead and plop that in here. And like I said, I'm just doing this on one. I'll show you the full extent of that in the finished drawing. I'm going to close the block editor. I do want to save changes. And now, here's my title block, but nothing's updated, right? This is where I need to use that command, @sync, to update this title block. All right, and again, had I used something like Batman, which I'll show in a moment. Anyway, @sync. I'm typing it in the documentation and in my video for you guys. I'll show you where it is on the toolbar. And it's prompting me right now to select. So I'll select the title block. And everything is... I'm sorry. No, you still need to. So the question was, if I exit the drawing, would it update those attributes? No, because that's the same thing as doing a regen all, and that's all it's doing. It's generating the database, but it won't update the attribute itself. So good question. I always hate saying good question. It sounds so redundant. Well, not redundant. I mean, because they're all good questions, right? All right, so that's where you want to make sure about the @sync manager, okay? All right, so let's go with, just to kind of expedite things. All right, so this is the same drawing, just... Let's see. Is it ignore? Which one's ignore? Thank you. All right. So this is actually the finished drawing with those fields in there and how they've populated from DWGPROPS. Now, this is actually a finished table that's already in the drawing, but I'll go through the process real quick. I'm going to go ahead and erase that. We have, so what we have here, of course, is a floor plan with the phones. Those are the ones I've attached all that information to. The information is invisible except for the extension. Okay. And so I'm going to go on the toolbar up here, there's a data extraction. I'm going to type in EATTEXT. So enhanced attribute. Yeah. There. All right. There we go. Whew. All right. So I've typed that in. This is the page 1 of 9 pages of the data extraction wizard. This data extraction wizard used to only work for attributes. It's very cool now because even if you don't have attributes, you want to get information about your line work, any object in AutoCAD, you can extract it to table or external file. How long that line work is. Did you call it, you want to rename it to conduit instead of AutoCAD line. Very cool wizard, but I won't get into that. I'm just going to walk through this. And the first option here is to create a new data extraction or use a previous extraction as a template. I do have a template there, but I'll just go ahead and click next. Oops, yeah, that figures. Next. Let's see. Oh, yeah, that's right. So it prompts me in this dialog, and I'm just going to use the defaults here. I'm going to create a trash template because I'm not going to worry about it, calling it something appropriate right now. I just want to get through this for you guys. So I've created a template, basically, that I can reuse later. Normally, I'd call it something more appropriate. So here we have some options. So data source would be either a drawing or a sheet set. In this case, I want to include the current drawing. I could choose to select objects. I'd put a window around a selection set around objects in order to create that extraction. But since what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to go into settings in the lower right, and I'm going to tell it, look, I just want you to extract data from blocks that exist only in model space. Okay, I don't need the information from the title block. So I've got, let's see, should have all that selected, and there's my settings. And here we'll go ahead and extract objects from blocks, extract objects from xrefs. You can uncheck that or check it. Xref is a block anyway. Include xrefs and block counts. I'm going to leave that unchecked. And at the bottom extraction, it says all objects in drawing. That's the default. So you need to make sure to check objects in model space only if you're doing something for this example. So I'm going to go ahead and hopefully that's selected. And OK is the first button, right? OK, so we'll click OK here. And then that is all we need to do there. That one next? No. That one. Thank you. All right, so that brings up this dialog, which shows me too much information. Okay, and this is, like I said, we can extract all we want out of the drawing. What I'm going to tell it is that I only want to see information about the phone block. So I'm going to uncheck here where it has display all objects. And I'm going to change it to display from blocks only, display blocks only with attributes, and only objects currently in use. All right, so uncheck. Yeah, there we go. Thank you. And then there we go. So now it's showing the architectural block as well as the phone block. I don't want the architectural block. That unchecked? No, this is the phone one. Okay. This. Oh, I must have hit the sort order. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, this angle isn't very conducive to instructing. All right. That look good? And OK is middle button. All right, so click on that guy. All right, so here again, we still have a lot of information about this block. Too much, more than I want. So I'm going to actually uncheck all this stuff here by unchecking the categories and only selecting attributes. Okay, because I only want the attribute information. I don't want to know how long a line is, what the x, y, z coordinates are of whatever line work I have in there. And let's see. Let me know if I don't uncheck some of this. You looking good? All right, so it's showing only the attribute information that I've embedded in the block. I'm going to go ahead and select Next. And next in the middle. All right, having selected next, it gives me kind of a preview. One of the things I don't want to see is this count column. So I can uncheck that here, and you can display this any way you want. Personally, I don't want to see that. I have options by right-clicking over the titles of renaming, hiding columns, reordering. Typically, I would rename those columns. So let's first of all uncheck count. Okay, there, unchecked. And then here, let's see, which one's that? Okay, M title wouldn't look very good on a spreadsheet. I'm just looking to see where rename is. It's 2 down from that. And so I can use F2 or rename, highlights that, and I'll go employee, name. I can, again, reorder these by dragging and dropping the columns. And as you saw, I had numerous options on that context menu. All right, so what am I forgetting here? All right. If you ever look into tables and stuff, you can actually link these tables with the external file and then update from the Excel, say, spreadsheet, and update the table using that. We won't get into that. We'll just click Next. In the middle, right? And what's...
You have a colon instead of your L.
Oh, okay, yeah. Fat fingers. All right. Okay. Well, there's got to be a way. All right, thank you. I know. This one's new to me. There we go. Ah. Good grief. I don't know what to tell you guys. We got 5 minutes left here. Personally, I would be very disappointed if I walked into a class like this. I will give me the weekend, and if anything, I'm not sure what the size is that I can upload to the AU site, but if anything, I'll make sure you get a link to the video, and I'll just do this entire video for you. Like I said, the instructions are in the handout. Okay, step-by-step exercises, but it's also nice to see how it should be done, a good visual. And I'm going to have a talk with these tech guys about the hookups. We test these things before we ever begin classes and then before the class, and can't think of any other excuses. Any questions, though? The handout is, you should download it from the AU Center. I think you've got the app there, or you can log in through the web. Okay, yeah. I still haven't used the app this year. You have a question back there?
There's a more labor-intensive way of doing it in LT.
Yeah, you actually have to create a text file template, and you have to be very specific with alpha and numeric characters, how many there are for each attribute tag. If you want to come up here, I can show you a quick example in the AutoCAD help what that looks like. It is pretty tedious, though. It's how we had to do it in AutoCAD years ago as well. Yeah.
One of the things that I get into arguments about, me and XREFs, title blocks, XREFs, and blocks, especially for larger jobs, so 60 pages, 200
Mhm.
pages, how do you link the construction and the date, you know, the revision section, where I can do like the whole thing off of your blocks?
Okay, I would, for that, use a sheet set. Have you worked with those? Sheets.
Wednesday.
Okay, sheet sets actually allow you to do that.
Okay, so
Yeah, just individual. That's where the sheet sets are more powerful because it's linked to each.
can I import a title block from an architect or a consultant?
Yeah, you
for
can.
the sheet set?
Yeah, there's some setup work you have to do.
Okay.
I'm not the best on sheet sets, but
No problem.
that's what it's designed to do is
So
work
if
with
I-
files like
if
that.
I receive a block with attributes from a consultant or
Yep,
architect,
you can use those in
I
any
can
file,
put
whether
it
it's
right into a
sheet set. Yeah, sure.
And I should learn that from the sheet set class.
Yeah, and if you specific answer, ask the guy.
Okay.
They should be able to show you.
That was one of the reasons why. I
Yeah,
wanted to-
sheet sets will do that for you.
Okay, great, thanks.
All right, thanks for attending.
Could you also enable somehow the file that you are working on?
Yeah, that's up there.
Okay.
It's in a zip file called dataset. Okay.
No, because
Yeah.
watching at the handout, going through this file with this handout would be.
Yeah. That's. I mean, I tried to
People
do everything step by step in that handout. Like I said, it's just some people are better with a good visual too. So, and I feel so bad. Thanks for attending. Yeah. That's. I'm just glad they don't pay me for just presenting. Let me show this gentleman real quick about data extraction.
I have a resource question.
Sure.
I am trying to create an attributed file that the geometry is driven by values in a table.
Yeah, so constraints, parametric, using the
Yes.
parametric tools.
So just parametric, or is there a way to link that parametric data to like an Excel file to drive?
Well, it does create a, it's been a while since I've worked with them. I think there's a way to link that to the Excel file.
Maybe a resource here.
Give me a second and let me think of the name on that. Okay. Oh, at extract. All right. Yeah, actually I can probably, well, it'll be better. Okay. All right, so the attribute at extract, I think that's it right there. About extracting data from block attributes, creating an attribute extraction template. Where is it? Start Notepad, yeah. So they had a good example here, though, to extract. There we go. So this is kind of what you need to do right here. You need to create a text template file. And you need to have this specific information, the block name, what kind of characters, is it a character or a numeric value, and it all needs to be very specific. If you're off even one character, it fails. It was the most annoying and tedious way to do things. You know, you made sure to save your file after you created a template. This is as good as the documentation as you're going to get on this. I mean, you can probably find the same information in a book about creating a attribute extraction template file in AutoCAD LT. I should probably do a video on this or a webinar on this.
Plan of just bringing that in?
No, you know, there's a reason that AutoCAD LT is cheaper than AutoCAD.
I was always hoping that it was just the 3D. I don't need the 3D.
No, this is one of those things. So one of the big things about AutoCAD is that it can talk to databases externally. So, okay, so just like 3D, that's one of the things they aren't putting into AutoCAD. Now, the thing is, you may want to look out for third-party programs because the API is open enough. Somebody may have created a third-party application that would do that for you. It doesn't hurt to search. Go to 10 links, or something like that.
Another way. How about, is there a good way of doing window schedules in LT besides me taking my pen and going, okay,
Not
so
really.
this.
No. Yeah. There's going to be limitations with LT.
Well, that's all right. That's, you gotta learn, eh? It's been good to me until I finally get fed up with the tedious work.
Yeah, well, that's it. AutoCAD, along with AutoLisp, VBA, VB, .NET, and all that, it allows you to automate those tasks.
Yep.
So,
Can you do attribute out in light, ATTOUT?
In LT, I can't recall.
I think you
It's
might
been a
be
while.
able to.
But it's going to bring up that, it's going to prompt you for a template.
Oh,
So let's do it. Let's try it.
Yeah.
Let's try it, okay? I'm sure I've LT installed here. So we'll launch that puppy up real quick. And fortunately, nobody's waiting on me. Okay, come on. It always takes so long when you're waiting, right? Yeah. Okay. So here's, I guess I'm going to have to open up a drawing with attributes. So I'll go open. Oops. Start a drawing. Come on. Let's go open. There we go. All right. Let's go to my attribute class. And image plotting attributes 2014. I'll just open up that finished drawing that I have there. And so, by the way, it will support any tables that you've created in AutoCAD. Just not going to, you're just not going to be able to do that extraction. But so you're talking out, and that is going to give me an unknown command.
Okay, so that might be from when I was a student, like 10 years ago, and was using an older version of AutoCAD. That's what I used to do.
Yeah,
But
with LT?
with a cracked version of AutoCAD.
Yeah, okay. No problem. I won't repeat that. No, so the the attribute extraction wizard, that wasn't introduced until I think it was 2004.
Okay.
And then it was changed to the
Yeah.
data extraction wizard
Yeah.
around AutoCAD 2006. So we had to do this with the template
Yeah.
in AutoCAD, and it was a tedious thing.
Yeah. 'cause
Yeah.
That's what I used to do. I'm a landscape architect, so we had plant keys with attributes, and then we hit ATTOUT, and that would could isolate
right,
them,
right.
put that into a text file, copy
Yeah.
and paste that into Excel, and do all of our.
Yeah, it was the same thing as using at
So I don't
extract.
know if there's maybe Google what's the new @out command?
Yeah.
It might just be
Well,
renamed something differently.
Again, I would recommend looking for third-party utilities
Yeah,
for AutoCAD LT. Yeah, or upgrade. And I hate saying that. I'm not a salesperson. Okay, but I do prefer AutoCAD over AutoCAD LT any day.